Hello and welcome to Here Comes the Bride, the Church Begins. This is devotional number 59 in the book of Acts. So glad to have you with us. I'm Pastor Jim Devore, the pastor at Cornerstone Church of Littlerock in Southern California. We are in Acts chapter 23, beginning with verse 25, 23-25. And we are in the story of Paul's rescue from the Jewish leaders who have agreed to let 40 men who bound themselves by an oath and wanted to kill Paul. They said they weren't going to eat or drink until Paul was dead, and they were plotting to kill him the next day. And so these men were plotting to kill, and the tribune hears of the plot, and he rescues Paul. So we're going to pick it up in the middle of the rescue. I'm actually going to back it up to verse 23. After the tribune has been brought, the news, then he puts into his plan to protect Paul. The tribune is the Roman commander who oversees approximately 1,000 Roman soldiers, and in this case, he's going to put those soldiers together to help protect Paul. So here we go. We're in chapter 23. I told you we're going to start in 25. We're going to back up and start in 23. Acts 23:23. Then he, the tribune, called two of the centurions. So let's just kind of do a quick thing. A centurion is a Roman soldier in charge of 100. So if a tribune is in charge of 1,000, he probably specifically oversees 10 centurions. So he called two of the centurions and said, "Get ready 200 soldiers." So centurion number one, get ready your 100. Centurion number two, get ready your 100. In addition to that, get 70 horsemen and 200 spearmen to go as far as Caesarea at the third hour of the night. So he's going to get them out of Jerusalem into Caesarea, not tomorrow when the Jews are planning on getting him, but at about 9 p.m. tonight. That's the third hour of the night. Okay? Verse 24, also provide mounts for Paul to ride and bring him safely to Felix the governor. And he, the tribune, wrote a letter to this effect. Claudius Lysias, to his excellency the governor Felix, greetings. So Claudius Lysias is going to be the name of your tribune. Okay, so Luke kind of tosses that in there. Yeah, I mean, he obviously knows of the letter, but that's going to give us some historical marker there. So now you can go to your secular markers, and if you find out that Claudius Lysias, I mean, he may not even be in the history books. He's just a tribune that may not have got enough prominence to have his name in a history book, but he's the one who writes. You might find more likely to find the governor Felix, okay? And so here we go. Claudius Lysias, to his excellence, the governor of Felix, greetings. This man, Paul, who's going to show up with, 470 soldiers protecting him, okay? This man was seized by the Jews and was about to be killed by them when I came upon them with the soldiers and rescued him, having learned that he was a Roman citizen. So now we understand why the Romans have actually protected Paul. And desiring to know the charge for which they were accusing him, I brought him down to their council. I found that he was being accused about questions of their law, but charged with nothing deserving death or imprisonment. So he's being accused of one thing, but it's not enough that the Romans should kill him or imprison him. And when it was disclosed to me that there would be a plot against the man, I sent him to you at once, ordering his accusers also to state before you what they have against him. So he's going to interrupt the death plot against Paul, and he's going to tell the Jews, and probably not the 40 Jews who are going to kill Paul, because we're assuming that what the nephew heard was probably just in the conversation between the leadership. So he's going to go to the leadership and say, look, I've moved Paul in the night, and if you really think you should kill him, then now you're going to need to talk to the governor about this. In other words, it's going to be, I'm sending you up to somebody who's going to be a little harder to convince, okay? All right, now the question I ask myself, and I don't think we ever hear it again, is what happened to these 40 guys who bound themselves with an oath? I mean, I think they're going to die of hunger and starvation before Paul dies in Rome. So they're really in a tough spot. We can assume that either A, they broke their oath and had some excuse and reason why, a rash decision, a rash vow, or they died out of their zealousness. Because let's look at it from this standpoint. If their vow is to God and believing in God, and they don't actually catch Paul, then they would have to learn the hard way with their own lives that the death of Paul was not the desire of God. You see what that vow does? It then determines that the death of Paul is not the desire of God. So God literally is going to allow 40 men to die as a demonstration that they had the wrong vow. They were vowing to the wrong person. Okay, but we never hear the end of that. Okay, we don't know what happened to those guys. We can only assume based on their rash vow that that's what they did. Or maybe they just bailed on their vow and decided to change their mind. But that's what happens there, okay, if that were to happen. So the soldiers, according to their instructions, took Paul, brought him by night to Antipatris. And on the next day they returned to the barracks, letting the horsemen go on with him. When they had come to Caesarea and delivered the letter to the governor, they presented Paul also before him. On reading the letter, he asked what province he was from, and when he learned that he was from Cilicia, he said, "I will give you a hearing when your accusers arrive." And he commanded him to be guarded in Herod's praetorium. Okay, so what we've got here is Governor Felix is going through the proper channels. If this man is a Roman citizen, and if he is actually within my jurisdiction area, then in my province, then I will listen to his case once his accusers arrive. Okay? All righty. So, chapter 24, verse 1. And after 5 days, the high priest Ananias came down with some elders and a spokesman, one Tertullus. They laid before the governor their case against Paul. So 5 days later, these guys put together what they think is a strong case. They show up to the governor. They lay out their case. They're the prosecutors at this point, trying to come up with a reason to have a death penalty for Paul. Okay? All right. When he had been summoned, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, so they've got their case. Their spokesman is Tertullus. He shows up in Felix's area, and then he waits for Felix to call him in. Felix calls him in. Here's what he says, okay? Since through you we enjoy much peace, and since by your foresight, most excellent Felix, reforms are being made for this nation, in every way and everywhere we accept this with all gratitude. But to detain you no further, I beg you in your kindness to hear us briefly. They're buttering him up. Okay, the opening part of the presentation is, you're such a great guy, you'll do what we ask you to do. Okay, all right. For we have found this man, Paul, a plague, one who stirs up riots among all the Jews throughout the world, and is a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. Okay, talk about character slamming and name calling. First of all, he is a plague. He's a menace to society. He stirs up riots, not just in Israel, but everywhere. So if you get rid of him, you're not just doing Jerusalem a favor, you're doing all of Israel a favor, you're doing the whole world a favor. Okay, he's a plague. Get rid of him. Okay? And on top of that, he's a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. You know, those evil guys that go around saying Jesus is risen from the dead and they help the poor people and they come along beside them? Yeah, those guys that are real evil and bad. Okay? He even tried to profane the temple, but we seized him. Now, honestly, in the whole scheme of things, that's a minor deal. Okay, Felix is not going to be really too cared about what happens to the temple. But they're kind of throwing this on, this is, and not only that, but he's done this and he's done that. So finally, we seized him in the profaning of the temple. That's why we originally arrested him. We had a right to do that at this point. Okay? By examining him yourself, verse 8, you will be able to find out from him about everything of which we accused him. Okay? The Jews also joined in the charge, affirming that all these things were so. Okay, so everybody's in on the game. Everybody's in on it. There's all kinds of voices saying, Paul must be killed. Okay? We're going to hold you in suspense right there because we don't have time to go on with Paul's defense at this point, but Paul's about to defend himself. Okay? What do we learn here? Okay, in God's eternal plan, his followers, his people are going to be persecuted. They're going to be lied about. They're going to be slandered. That's just going to happen. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians, he writes that, his life has been depicted by slander, by being vilified. That's in chapter 4 of 1 Corinthians, by the way. So Paul said this is just what happens. Wherever we go, this happens, okay? So Paul is, in a sense, kind of used to this. What do we learn about the plan of God for the church? That false accusations are not going to stop the plan of God for the church, nor are they going to stop the plan of God for an individual. So if you've been falsely accused, Don't abandon your current approach of following God and coming up with a better way. Continue to trust God and watch him come to your rescue. And know that no matter how the church is vilified, made to look evil, no matter how the church is slandered, wrong things said about it, no matter what, God will cause his church to succeed and bring about his plans for his glory. All righty. Thanks for joining us for Here Comes the Bride. The church begins. Tomorrow we pick up in Acts chapter 23, beginning in verse 10. Acts 23, verse 10.